We all know the houses from our favourite Christmas films, and they return to our screens year after year, yet rarely do we stop to consider the architecture behind them. Well, in today's video on Homes Explained, we're taking a closer look at the iconic homes of the Christmas movies and exploring how their design shapes the mood, supports the story, and quietly brings these films to life. Starting with the Home Alone house, which is a real house in Illinois, and it actually sold in January 2025 for $5.5 million. And it's a textbook example of a Georgian Colonial. The perfectly symmetrical red brick facade, crisp white trim, multi-pane windows, and centered front door with side lights and fan light all give the house its classic balanced appearance. Even the roof dormers reinforce that ordered facade and hint at a third attic story. True to the older suburban layouts, the garage is detached and located to the side and rear of the house. So with a basement, multiple stories above, the house has that generous early 20th century scale that allows the film's action to move vertically as well as horizontally. Although the interiors of this house were filmed on a set, the designers plausibly recreated a very 1920s or 1930s Georgian plan, which had a central hall, a very grand staircase, and formal rooms positioned either side of that entry. There's also a separate staircase from the second story leading to the attic, which creates the kind of tucked away space that makes Kevin's banishment scene feel very architectural rather than just gimmicky. The basement details feel very authentic too, with a couple of features to point out which were unique to homes of that age. So did you notice the laundry chute where clothes from the upper levels were dropped down into the basement where all the laundry was done, as well as the oversized rattling furnace that scares Kevin initially? And that's what you'd have had in homes of that size before quieter HVAC systems came along. But what truly defines the interior is the use of colour. You've got the deep red damask wallpaper going throughout the house, the matching bright red stair runner, and upstairs the bedrooms are kind of saturated in red patterns and the bright greens, and they work together to create a house that feels unconsciously festive from the moment you step inside. The architecture provides the order, while the colour palette provides all the holiday energy. And that's really where this house shines, because Georgian colonials are all about symmetry and discipline. And so what you see here is a tension between the calm, composed backdrop of this really formal, beautiful house, contrasted with the film's kind of pandemonium. And that's really what makes this house one of the most iconic in Christmas movie history. The Griswold house, meanwhile, isn't real at all. It was a facade built in Burbank, California on a film set designed to resemble a warm, familiar American colonial revival home. Its symmetry, shutters, multi-pane windows and centered front door all echo the massively popular colonial revival style that shaped so many late 20th century suburbs. So a couple of architectural details to point out here. The small kind of humps on the roof that look like dormers are actually decorative attic vents designed purely for visual interest to break up the kind of solid roof for the film. They wouldn't ordinarily be there. And next door, did you notice on Todd and Margot's ultra sleek modern home features a kind of dramatic and really fancy Palladian window, which was all the rage in the 1980s and 90s. So in the film, this is when the icicle kind of shoots off the Griswold house and goes into Todd and Margot's and kind of melts on everything. So this is a perfect example of architectural snobbery for the neighbours who felt they were better than the Griswolds. Inside, the set reflects a softer, much more everyday colonial revival. You've got the classic centre hall layout with a formal living room and dining room kind of flanking the entrance. And then you see much paler wallpaper and lighter woods than we saw in the Home Alone house. The palette features creams, tans, soft blues, thoroughly 1980s suburban comfort. And whereas Home Alone builds Christmas into the very colour scheme, this film, The National Lampoon Christmas Vacation, takes a different approach by layering the Christmas decor on top of a more neutral backdrop, making it feel as if the home is completely overwhelmed by Christmas, somewhat like the Griswolds themselves. One significant architectural difference between these two homes is the garage, because in Home Alone we saw the Georgian garage is detached and tucked behind the house, which is a very traditional early 20th century layout. But the Griswold home, by contrast, reflects the late century shift to a fully attached suburban garage. It was practical, convenient, and seamlessly folded into family life. And above the second floor is the pull-down attic where Clark gets stuck, and that became standard once suburban homes grew upward rather than outward. In the end, the Griswold home works because it feels so ordinary. It's the quintessential American suburb, which makes the escalating absurdity even more entertaining. From the chaos of the Griswold home, we now move to something entirely different, and the soft, intimate charm of St Luke's Mews in London's Notting Hill, where this famous scene from Love Actually was filmed. This pastel-painted lane is tucked behind grand Victorian townhomes, and today is one of the most photographed streets in London. Houses on the same street are selling for around £3 to £4 million, which is remarkable for buildings that were never meant to be prestigious. And that's because a mews in the UK has a very specific meaning. So historically, mews streets are service lanes behind large Georgian and Victorian townhomes. They were home to stables, carriage houses, grooms' quarters, and later garages once the horses disappeared. Architecturally, they were very simple, practical two-storey buildings with wide opening for carriages on the ground floor and very modest living quarters above. And that architectural intimacy is exactly why this scene works so well. The soft colours, the narrow proportions, and the quiet enclosure, even the original cobblestones, create a very romantic backdrop for the scene. And it's a perfect example of how architecture can support the tone of a moment. And in a film filled with kind of grand gestures and intertwined stories, this tiny London mews gives us one of the simplest and most unforgettable scenes. And finally, we end on something a little more dramatic, the old Granville house from It's a Wonderful Life. Though this was also a facade built on a film set, the house is unmistakably a Second Empire architectural style. And you can see that from the steep mansard roof, the patterned shingles, the dormer windows, and the tall, imposing facade, which gives it a very dramatic appearance. Second Empire homes have a way of feeling both slightly Gothic as well as deeply romantic, and that duality is exactly what makes the old Granville home so effective. In its decayed state, the style amplifies the sense of neglect and kind of unrealised potential, but as George and Mary, particularly Mary, restore the house, the same architecture then suddenly reads as kind of warm, hopeful, and full of promise. So in contrast to the traditional Colonials and Cape Cods that you typically see in all the holiday movies that instantly convey warmth and familiarity, this film needs a really unique architectural style that can convey the two opposite storylines at once. And this Second Empire home becomes a symbol of resilience and the beauty of imperfection. The old Granville house in It's a Wonderful Life is so powerful because its architecture mirrors George Bailey's emotional journey. It's bleak and broken when he is, and yet it's warm and glowing when he's with his family and he rediscovers his purpose. And I think this is what makes this house in this film totally unique, that you have a situation where architecture mirrors the main character's journey. These Christmas homes from our favourite films may feel familiar, but it's the architecture that's doing an enormous amount of storytelling without us even realising. And once you see how each house shapes the mood and kind of supports the story, I hope you'll never look at a home in a Christmas movie the same way again. Thanks so much for joining me today, and don't forget to come back next week for more Homes Explained.